In current times, where humanity finds itself surrounded by a succession of crises, tensions, and uncertainties, a new chapter unfolds before our eyes with an intensity that echoes in the deepest corners of the soul. The escalation of the conflict between Israel and Iran, a confrontation that goes beyond political and military borders and that, for many, awakens the memory of ancient prophecies that speak of the last days of human history. This text is an invitation to deep reflection, to inner listening, and to spiritual contemplation of a scenario that seems increasingly intertwined with the mysteries revealed in the Holy Scriptures. It is not just about following the news and understanding political developments. It is about looking beyond the headlines, seeing the invisible threads that weave the destiny of nations, and realizing that, behind the apparent chaos, there is a divine purpose being fulfilled with impressive precision. When we look at the growing tension between Israel and Iran, we do not see just a territorial or religious dispute. We see the ancient shadow of Gog and Magog moving, taking shape, and positioning itself on the stage of history. The biblical prophecy, often relegated to symbolic or literary interpretations, resurfaces with an almost palpable force. Written millennia ago by the prophet Ezekiel, the vision of a coalition of nations marching against Israel seemed for centuries something distant or allegorical. However, as current events unfold with impressive similarity to Ezekiel's words, a question echoes in the hearts of thousands. Is this prophecy finally coming to life before our eyes? The answer is not simple nor definitive, but what can be clearly stated is that the parallels are too disturbing and powerful to be ignored. Iran, with its incendiary rhetoric and its strategic involvement in regional conflicts, emerges as one of the main protagonists of this new scenario. Its aggressive stance toward Israel, its support for hostile militias, and its constant search for influence in the Middle East place it inevitably at the center of eschatological attention. On the other hand, Israel, the nation that was born from the dust of the Holocaust and rose like a phoenix from the ashes, continues to be the epicenter of divine promises and the focus of spiritual and political attacks. Every threat against Israel, every missile fired, every alliance against its sovereignty seems to revive the ancient words of the prophet, as if the centuries folded upon themselves and ancient events were being updated in real time. The prophecy of Gog and Magog, contained in chapters 38 and 39 of Ezekiel, is not just a description of war. It is a revelation of a spiritual conflict disguised as a political battle, a collision between light and darkness, between divine faithfulness and human rebellion. According to the sacred text, Gog will arise from the remote parts of the north, leading a powerful coalition against Israel at a time when the nation is living in relative peace and security. The intention will be to plunder, destroy, and eliminate, but what will follow will be something never seen before: the direct intervention of the God of Israel.
Earthquakes, heavenly judgments, confusion among enemy armies, fire and sulfur falling from the sky. The language used by Ezekiel is intense, vivid, and absolutely frightening. But above all, it reveals God's sovereignty over history. For at the moment when all seems lost, it will be the Lord himself who will rise to protect his people, not only as a defender, but as judge of all nations. His holiness will be revealed not through words, but through unquestionable acts that will make nations tremble before his glory. Iran, in the current context, approaches with frightening similarity the descriptions of Ezekiel. Its alliance with other hostile nations, its pursuit of regional hegemony, its declared hatred of Israel, all of this paints the scenario of a coalition with hidden spiritual motivations. And while the world discusses sanctions, diplomatic negotiations, and UN resolutions, the spiritual world moves in silence, preparing the fulfillment of what was prophesied. Between the lines of headlines and political debates, in the silence of the human soul and the restlessness of the people's hearts, something greater is taking shape, something that transcends mere geopolitics. The war between Israel and Iran is not an ordinary conflict. It is not just a matter of territory, power, or religion. It is a clear sign that the gears of destiny are in motion, announcing the fulfillment of prophecies that have echoed for millennia. When we look at today's map of the Middle East, It is impossible not to notice how Iran positions itself as a decisive actor, not only because of its growing arsenal, its forward bases, and its influence on over-militant groups, but because of the purpose that seems to guide its actions, a purpose that many believe is aligned with dark spiritual forces that seek chaos and the destruction of the nation that God chose for himself. Iran, in its fervent zeal, has become the voice and the hand that revived the ancient figure of Gog, the leader of the northern nations who, according to the prophecy, will rise in an attack against the people of Israel. Its alliance with groups like Hezbollah, its involvement in Syria, its aggressive discourse, all of this composes a picture that defies human understanding and calls us to spiritual vigilance. But it is not just Iran. The prophecy speaks of a coalition, a union of nations and peoples that, motivated by diverse interests, unite against Israel. It is an alliance of hatred and rebellion against the divine plan, a desperate attempt to prevent the promise of God from being fulfilled, for the divine light to shine amid the darkness of this world. And what happens when this coalition advances? The Bible is clear and leaves no room for doubt. There will be a direct, supernatural intervention by God himself. Those seemingly invincible forces will be shaken, confused, defeated not by human power, but by divine power. It's a moment of judgment and revelation, where the holiness and lordship of God will be manifested to all creation. The images that the prophet Ezekiel leaves us are strong, almost cinematic. Tremors that split the earth, fire and sulfur falling from the sky, confusion among enemy armies, complete destruction of the invaders. All of this is not just symbolic, it is a promise that evil will not prevail, no matter how advanced, powerful, or feared it may seem. And it is at this point that hope resides, a hope that is not based on human forces, but on the faithfulness and power of the living God. Israel, despite threats, wars, and suffering, remains the chosen people, guarded by the hand of the Most High. Its restoration is not only physical, but spiritual. It's the redemption of a people who faced the Holocaust, exile, and persecutions, but who today, more than ever, walk toward their glorious redemption. In current events, we can observe signs that point to this restoration: the reconstruction of national identity, the return of Jews to their land, the increasing international recognition of Israel's right to exist, even amid controversies and conflicts. They are like pieces of a puzzle that slowly fit together, revealing a greater plan.
But the war scenario also alerts us to the period that approaches, a time of trial and tribulation, where the Antichrist, a dark figure predicted in the scriptures, will come on the scene. He will present himself as a charismatic leader, promising peace and security, but with hidden intentions, preparing the ground for the final confrontation between good and evil. This war between Israel and Iran can be seen as the prelude to this great clash, where the spiritual forces at play will be revealed in all their magnitude. The Battle of Gog and Magog is not just a physical war, but a spiritual clash, a struggle for the soul of humanity and for the fulfillment of the divine plan. It is in this context that each of us is called to awaken. The prophecy is not just a distant prediction, it is an urgent call for us to look within, to align our lives with the eternal truth, to seek the light amid the darkness. The external war reflects the internal war that we all face, the struggle between faith and doubt, hope and despair, light and darkness. And the message that echoes is clear. Even when the world seems to plunge into chaos, there is a divine order that cannot be broken. God is in control, even when everything indicates otherwise. He protects his people, governs nations, judges with justice, and will bring final victory to his eternal kingdom. Therefore, in the face of the escalation of the conflict between Israel and Iran, in the face of threats that become increasingly real, we are invited not just to observe passively, but to act in spirit and in truth. Prayer, repentance, vigilance, and faith become powerful weapons to endure the difficult times that are announced. This is not a text of fear, but of courage. It is not a call to panic, but to firm and unshakable hope.
For even when the world seems to plunge into chaos, there is a divine order that cannot be broken. God is in control, even when everything indicates otherwise. He protects his people, governs nations, judges with justice, and will bring final victory to his eternal kingdom. Therefore, may we awaken from spiritual slumber, open the eyes of the heart, and understand the time in which we live. May we walk with courage, with faith, and with the certainty that the Lord of Israel is with us, today, tomorrow, and forever.